Hey guys, Geo here. So some of you may have noticed that in my recent videos I haven't been using a potting mix for my bucket gardening, and there's a reason for that. The reason is that the series is working. The series is working on the premise that you don't have a lot of these assets just lying around. So most of us can acquire a 5-gallon bucket. Most of us can go find some soil outside. However, not everyone has perlite and vermiculite, compost, coconut coir, peat moss just sitting around. And if you were to go out and buy these things, they get expensive quickly. A bag of vermiculite, I think, goes for about $15 for a cubic foot. So it's not cheap. Perlite similar. I think perlite's a hair cheaper. The compost, bags of compost, good compost, is going to be expensive. I mean, it adds up real quick. You could be, for a 5-gallon bucket of soil, if you were to mix it properly with a third of vermiculite, a third of compost, and say a third of coconut coir or peat moss, you're going to be into that bucket for $25 just in materials. Now, if you can afford it, do it. Go for it. You're going to have good, excellent soil with the compost in there. You're going to have excellent soil with the vermiculite, keeping the moisture and keeping it fluffy. Those items are great, and you should do it if you have the asset at hand. If you have it lying around, you get it for free, whatever the case may be, go for it. But the premise here is that we don't have those things at hand, and it's about food security. So if you can afford to go buy those things, go buy some food. Go buy some potatoes and tomatoes and carrots and corn. Hey girls, quiet. Sorry, you're gonna have to deal with animal noises. I live in the country. Go buy the food. It's going to be far more cost effective than trying to purchase a bunch of soil materials and make the perfect gardening mix. I have no problems with those things. I think they're great. They keep your soil from compacting. If I dig here, maybe I can find, there's a potato. Yeah. This probably won't compact real well, but soil, when it compacts real easily, and that's one of the cautions I'm going to get into with this series, is when you do water, you don't want to overwater, because that soil in a bucket will compact into concrete, especially if you have a clay material. Clay is probably the worst. I'm fortunate here, as you can see, I have my area where I put leaves and garden waste in here, sticks. This is a sunflower stalk, and I throw these out here, and the bacteria and fungi and little critters, they consume this stuff, break it down until it is, if I brush a little away, just soil perfection. Oh, and it's alive. It is absolutely alive. So if I can dig down, and hopefully this will come into focus for you. You can see it's just alive. There was an earthworm there somewhere. Might have dropped him. There's some other little critters running around in here, larval stages of things, and they are eating and breaking this down and giving me an absolute beautiful tool to work with in the garden. Hopefully we're in the shot. So this absolute beautiful tool in the garden. And that's what I'm using. So what I'm doing for the bucket is I'm just coming out here with my shovel, my rake, or my pitchfork in this case, and I'm just going to scrape a little soil away, or a little of these leaves and the matter that I'm throwing out here, biomatter, and I'll just be digging in a little bit and pulling a little of this stuff off. So I'm getting soil, and I'm getting compost. And this is going to stay pretty fluffy for you compared to dirt. So if you can get this, if you have access to a similar material, jump on it, use that. If you have access to vermiculite, perlite, those sort of things, use them. But if you don't, use what assets you have at hand. So this is why I didn't say, hey, you have to use this special mix, because again, I'm going under the premise that you don't have those things at hand. So that's that. Now, for watering with the buckets, I like to water from the bottom up, just like I do with plant starters. So if you water from, even with good soil, good garden mix or seed starter, if you water from the top down, sprinkle on them when the seedlings are just starting, that soil will tend to compact a little bit. And so we're going to avoid that by watering from the bottom up. And I'll show you how I go about that also. That'll be what I do is I'll take the bucket or the little seedling pots, and they'll be placed in water at the base, and that water will seep or percolate up into the soil medium, and then water the seed from the bottom up instead of pouring from the top down, which will increase the compaction rate of that soil. So it doesn't percolate up, it wicks up. So the moisture will wick up from the bottom of the pot up to the root zone, and we'll cover that. Now initially, however, sometimes you do have to water from the surface so that the moisture gets to where the seed is, the seed zone. Okay, initially, and that's usually, you only have to do that a couple times, maybe once, until that little seedling sprouts, and then it shoots its roots down to where the water zone will be. And that water zone will compact on you. And the only thing that's really going to open it up is going to be the roots for those plants. So you have to be careful not to overwater, and water from the bottom up, just an inch or so, a couple inches, and that way you can avoid that heavy compaction. All right, guys, so let's discuss the watering. Again, we don't want to overwater because you're just going to compact the soil down. You know, you're not going to take your half gallon of water or a gallon of water and just pour it into the top of your 5-gallon bucket, because what that's going to do is it's going to compact and dense, make that soil much more dense, and that won't leave room for the roots to grow. So what you want to do, and I'm going to use the potato bucket for examples. Okay, potato video, I drilled holes about 1.5 inches to 2 inches up. So here's our hole. Okay, 6 inches up, we placed a seed potato. So there's a seed potato right there, and then the top of our soil is right here. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna water from the bottom up. In this case, I've got this mixing trough. You guys are gonna have to bear with the Air Force right now. They're gonna warm up their jets or something for an hour. The seeds here, holes here, we're gonna water from the bottom up. so that we have moisture in the root zone. So initially, what you'll do, as you can see here, I brought the water up to about 4.5 to 5 inches here. I don't know if you can see that. Tape measure. Okay, so 4.5 to 5 inches. It might be a little higher there since I put the bucket in, raised the water there. And what's going on now is that water is coming in through those holes in the bottom, and it's percolating. It's moving up here into the root zone. Our little potato is sitting right here, so it's moving up in the root zone, and that'll moisten the soil down here in the root zone where the potato is at. And so I'm going to leave it in this trough here for about 10-15 minutes, long enough for that moisture to get in there. I'm not going to water from the top. I don't want the soil all to compact. I want the roots to be able to move out and that potato to grow in this bucket. If I have loose soil, I have better root growth. This is the problem with using just any old soil you find. But again, we're talking about infrastructure, and if you don't have it, use what you have at hand. Think outside the box if you can. If you have a perlite or vermiculite substitute, use it. Share it with me, because I don't know too many more. Anyway, so that'll sit in there just like that. Now once you start seeing your little potato sprouts come up, you're not going to water it so deeply. You're actually only going to water maybe a couple inches above that hole, just enough to keep the water in the base. Okay, and that'll help keep this from condensing, because it's just going to turn into a big block of concrete otherwise. All right, so now you can do the same thing with the peas or beans. Okay, I got beans in this one. Same sort of thing, except not as deep. You're not going to come all the way up to here to water them. The root zone's way over here right now, right? So initially you may do that a couple times, let it soak that deep, but you don't have to. Just a few inches, an inch or so above this will allow water to percolate and keep this area wet. But you will have to have water in that root zone. And so what I do is I use a little sports bottle. So this is a 1 liter sports bottle, maybe 1 quart. There's not much difference. Sports bottle. And initially, I will use that to water from the top. You know I'm saying don't do that. Initially, I'll use it to water from the top where my little seeds are. And not much. You would never water more than this initially. Once those seeds get going, they're going to send the roots down, and they're going to find that moisture down in the bottom. Okay, and you'll be able to water them from the bottom, but you'll wait until you see them pop up there. Now, just continue to use your top watering method. As long as you see your plants, if they wilt, even though you've watered from the bottom, you still need to keep giving them from the top until those roots get deep enough to reach that moisture down below. So there's that. Now, we have another problem with using soil you find, and that is going to be sprouts. So right here, if you take a look, let's take a look. We can see little guys popping up in here. Now, they're not a major problem. Just pull them out. Toss them. These are, who knows? Probably just goosefoot or something along those lines, lamb's quarter, that just come up. They're everywhere out here. They're actually edible. So if things get real desperate, you might want to know which weeds you can eat. So just throw them out. Another problem you may have is critters. Can you find any? There might be a few in here. So you might have critters that could eat on your little potatoes. Now here's a pro tip. When you're setting up your soil, you can pour boiling water in it. This is before you put your potato in your soil, and that'll kill all the little critters, all the little eggs, all the life that's in your soil, if you feel inclined to do that. It'll also kill the dreaded fungus gnats. So I guarantee there's fungus gnats in here, and those little guys will be flying around, and they're a real nuisance. And they will nibble a little bit, eat on your on the roots of your plants if there's too many of them. They can become a problem. And there's a lot of little tricks you can do to overcome that. So you could use boiling water, or you can actually take your soil and you put it into the oven on a cookie sheet. Put it in the oven on a cookie sheet, and you're going to heat up your oven to about 110, 120 degrees. Don't go over that. And that'll kill all the life in here. Now remember, it will kill all the life. There's good life in here. Okay, there's fungi in here that are going to help break down the organic matter. There are earthworms in here. They're going to be eating organic matter, and they're going to be depositing worm castings in your soil. There's some good things going on. So this is up to you if you want to do that. If you just can't handle some fungus gnats, go ahead and sterilize your soil in either one of those fashions. If that's not a big deal to you, generally there's not a lot of problems with what's in here. There's more good going on than bad, at least in my opinion. So, you know, your mileage may vary. All right, guys, so that was my slightly long-winded overview on soil in your bucket, and some of my feelings on that, and how I feel you should water. Again, use your own discretion. Use your assets at hand, and if you have any insights for me, I'd love to hear them. So share them in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.